Okay, this next story is called, I'll call it The White Orb. You know, by this time, my grandmother had died the year before in 1967. So I'm in 10th grade. And my mother, prior to this time, when my grandmother was alive, used to go dancing a lot in Ravenna with her friend Rhea at this big dance hall in Ravenna, big band thing. My mother was a wonderful dancer and she loved dancing. So I would stay home with my grandmother and we'd play cards and have great fun. But after my grandmother died, my mother stopped going to the dances because she didn't want me to stay home by myself. And this was a hard time. I realized that my grandmother had interceded a lot on my behalf with my mom, and so now it was just the two of us. And the more independent that I became as I got older, the more critical and the more focused my mother was on me. And she didn't have any outlet. So I was putting a lot of pressure on her to return to these dances because I could always count on 4 good days out of the week. Because Mother would prepare for the dance 2 days before, and she would be deciding what she was going to wear and getting her hair done and all this kind of stuff. And then there would be the day of the dance. Saturday was always a good day. And then on the day after the dance, depending on how things went at the dance, she would usually be in a really good mood the day after the dance. So I could count on 4 really good days during the week that the focus was off of me and onto something that my mother loved. And I loved seeing my mother love something. I loved seeing her happy, and she just, together, just the two of us all the time, neither one of us were very happy. So Rhea was putting a lot of pressure on her to return to the dances too, because Rhea said it was just no fun without Mother. So Mother decided that she would try to go to the dances again, but it all depended on me. If I behaved, I wasn't allowed to have anybody over at the house, and I wasn't allowed to go anywhere with anybody, and I had to stay at the house, and she was going to check on me. So I wasn't going to ruin this. I loved being in that big old house on Ray Avenue by myself. The calmness, the peacefulness was something that I really treasured. So she went off to the dance one night, and I was home alone, and this boy that liked me, I'll call him Jeff. That wasn't his real name, but I'll call him Jeff. Jeff liked me, and I liked him, and I'm about a sophomore in high school. And he called me on this evening, and we were sitting there talking on the phone, and our conversation was interrupted because I saw something on the wall in our living room between these 2 huge, almost floor-to-ceiling windows. Between those 2 windows, I saw this thing, and it was a little bitty speck of light that came out of the wall, and as it came out, it got bigger and bigger and bigger until it got to be about the size of someone's head, maybe a little bit bigger. And it was round. And it had dimension. It looked like a ball of fog or mist. And it just hovered there next to the wall in the living room. And at the risk of sounding like I was crazy, or at the risk of sounding like I had made this up in my imagination, I said to Jeff, "There's something on the wall here in the living room that I'm seeing." And he said, "Well, what is it?" And I said, "Well," and I explained to him, "it's this orb, it's this round thing that looks like it's a ball of fog, and it came out as a speck of light, and now it's just hovering on the wall." And he said, "Well, maybe it's coming from a light somewhere outside." And I said, "Well, probably. But if it is coming from a source outside, coming into the house, then I should be able to make a shadow between the source of this light and the thing itself on the wall, right?" And he said, "Yeah." Jeff was very, very smart, very brainy. So we decided that if I went to all the doorways and all the windows and even the mirrors and kind of flailed my arms around, I would create a shadow on this thing, and I would be able to determine from what direction this source of light is coming from. Well, I did that. I did that in that room. I did it in the kitchen, and kept looking through the doorway at this thing, and no shadow appeared at all. So I got back on the phone with Jeff, and I told him, I said, "Don't you go anywhere." And he said, I said, "I'm going to go up to the thing, and I'm going to cut my hands around it. And that way I will, make a shadow appear." So I did that, and I got back to the phone, and I said, "Jeff, I can't make a shadow appear on this thing. So I don't know where it's coming from. It seems like it's a thing all itself, and it's not coming from another place. So we talked about this, and I continued to watch this thing on the wall, and then it started fading into the wall. And it faded into the wall, and as it faded into the wall, it got smaller and smaller and smaller until it was just that little speck of light, and then poof, it disappeared. So we talked about this, and we talked about what it could be, and I didn't really want to share with him what I thought it was, but we talked about then other things because the thing is gone, and I thought, well, maybe I made this up, like my mother always said. But as we were talking, it appeared again in the same way, a speck of light getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it hovers. It kind of hovers like this on the wall. So he said, what do you think it really is? And I said, I can't think of anything but my grandmother. I think it's my Nana. And I think she's come back to tell me to say hi or bye or something. She had just passed away the year before. And it, it went away again, and we talked a little bit more. And I have to say, this boy, I still think about this boy. He didn't ever, there was never any tone in his voice that I was crazy. He never said, this is nuts, I don't believe this, I don't believe you. He said, I believe you. I believe you, and I believe it's probably what you say it is. So this boy has a place in my heart because he was really the first person that I ever shared anything like this with who didn't criticize me or think I was crazy. So I will talk about light in other stories. And these are the stories of my youth. And they're rather benign, really. The stories that will follow, I promise, are stuff that movies are made out of, really. And we'll continue on if you're willing to continue. So, as before, thanks a lot for watching.